So what a day to be a Texas Longhorns fan, as the Longhorns have a huge day in recruiting, getting not one recruit, not two recruit, not three or four, but 5 wins in a single day. We need to talk about this. We need to talk about where all this comes from, why I'm not surprised, and what it all means. But before we do, as always, you all know the drill. I need to hear from you. Hop down to the comments. Y for yes, N for no. Are you surprised that the Longhorns had that level of success? And let me know why or why not. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe, hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And as you can see, I'm on vacation, but with days like yesterday, you take a break and you need to talk about it. So with all that being said, let's jump right into it. So hey, me again, sorry to interrupt, but before we get back to the video, I meant to have this out Monday, and as I was driving through the mountains, didn't have any good signal. It ultimately didn't get uploaded, and I noticed last night, by the time I noticed, Texas got a massive addition to their recruiting class and a 5-star defensive back that I wanted to wait until I uploaded it to talk about. So that's why you see Vacation Ty coming in on this cut. I'm out here in the mountains on the lake, but we need to talk about Derrick Williams because this is a huge win for Texas's defense and something I talked about when Arch ultimately committed. It doesn't matter whether this is the offensive side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball, defensive linemen, offensive linemen, wide receivers, defensive backs. People are going to want to play a part of that class. This is a class that has a staple in it that you don't get every year. We don't get a quarterback prospect with a perfect rating that fields the last name Manning. So it makes it real unique. And there's a palpable excitement around not only Austin, but the Texas Longhorns football program. If they can improve this year, if their season goes well, watch out. Because if you think they're making moves now, if they come out with a successful season, impress people, and I'm not saying make the college football playoffs, heck, I'm not even saying win the Big 12. I'm saying play good football, show improvement, watch out. More people are going to jump on board, but let's step back, refocus on Derrick Williams. What does this mean in particular? And Texas gets another 5-star prospect per 24/7 Sports, a top 40 prospect in the nation out of Louisiana, 6'2", real solid prospect at the safety position, and this is exactly what Texas needs. I talked in the video, you're going to see that Texas had an addition that I liked as much as any addition they got the other day when 5 individuals committed, and that was the linebacker. And in the later portion of this video, you'll hear me talk about how I thought that was the most important addition Texas got, even more so important than the offensive line. And I know some of you are raising your eyebrows because I have hounded on that offensive line for so long, but the inside linebacker position wasn't one that Texas got the talent that they got at offensive line last class. Though Texas's offensive line still needs to improve, we can all agree they just signed a historic offensive line class. The only one that I can think of that rivals it was Kyle Flood's offensive line class his last year at Alabama, which at the end of the day, it's still Kyle Flood doing Kyle Flood things, so what are you going to do? But the linebacker position, they didn't get that depth of talent the year before. So when you get that 4-star linebacker who's just outside the top 300 players per 24/7 Sports, but I would bet he finishes inside the top 300 players. If you know, you know. That was a major win, getting in that inside linebacker position. But that was also before they got in Derrick Williams. And now that Derrick Williams is a part of this, he might be the most important commitment they've got not named Arch Manning in this class, because that secondary could be a sore spot for the Longhorns as well in the coming years if they don't have the adequate depth. And now addressing that depth is a massive win, one that was incredibly necessary for them to achieve. And what better way to do that than a 5-star prospect such as Derrick Williams? So at the end of the day, the Longhorns are in such good shape going forward, and it's going to be interesting to see who else hops on board. And as I said in the intro, let's start with where I'm not surprised. And if you caught my Arch Manning video, a lot of it revolves around that situation, because in that video I stated that I didn't think it was going to take long for Texas to start seeing the ripple effects that Arch Manning would cause. Look, let's be very honest about something. Anytime a blue chip quarterback enters a recruiting class, your parameters for what that recruiting class is capable of completely shift. But whenever that blue chip prospect is a 5-star quarterback, well, now all of a sudden the possibilities become endless. Wide receivers, offensive linemen, tight end, running backs, even defensive players want to play with that individual because recruiting classes just seem to be in better shape with a blue chip passer, especially a 5-star. But if you can get a blue chip 5-star with the last name Manning, Everything I just said goes up a notch, and I said that in that video because I only thought it was natural for Arch Manning to have major ripple effects on whichever institution he chose, and as I stated for quite some time, I thought Texas would be the favorite. Lo and behold, when he lands at the Longhorns, it didn't take long, and we saw a major day for the Longhorns, which saw them land a ton of offensive linemen on the heels of a recruiting class that was elite for offensive linemen, historic for offensive linemen, and is in the running for one of the best offensive line classes of all time from a recruiting perspective. We need to see how they develop, but certainly from a recruiting perspective, hey, real recognize real, and that was a phenomenal class last year. So let's go through the list, and we can start with Jaden Chapman, 6'4", offensive lineman, 300 pounds from the state of Texas. And what's so impressive about Texas's job yesterday is how they were able to lock up that state. Remember, before Steve Sarkisian was hired, I made a video talking about the Texas Longhorns needing to keep the talent there because they have a disproportionate amount of individuals who are in the top 300 players year in, year out. This year, it's 50 players in the top 300, which is astronomical. Therefore, it is so important to keep the players you need home. And there is a lot of competition not only trying to gain entry in the state of Texas, but within the state of Texas. Texas A&M just put together that historic class last year. TCU is an institution where you have to watch out. Didn't stop the Longhorns from flipping somebody from TCU, and we'll talk about that. But you have institutions such as Baylor. You have Texas Tech. There's a lot of competition in the state of Texas. And right now the Longhorns are doing a fantastic job of making sure they get their picks, and Jaden Chapman is a great addition. Look, if you watch my Texas content, you'll know the one area I've harped on hasn't been with the entirety of the offense. I actually have faith that that offense will be very, very good. Throughout all of the chaos Texas had last year, that offense was still putting up numbers. The offensive line must improve, though, for them to be the offense they can be capable of being, especially with the skill they have at the skill position. But whenever you got that class last year, it'll take it a while for those guys to develop, but you have a clear path of where you're going. You're trying to strengthen that offensive line. I wouldn't have been surprised if this year Texas was a little bit lighter on the offensive line recruiting because of the great haul they got last year. But lo and behold, you get a Jaden Chapman, a blue chip offensive lineman, and that is a fantastic win, exactly what you want to see. But you also get a wide receiver. Jonah Wilson from the state of Texas, 6'3", 195 pounds, and this is exactly what I'm talking about with the ripple effects. If you're a blue chip wide receiver, you're going to want to go play with the blue chip quarterback because you feel more confident. You've probably had interaction with them at 7-on-7 or these camps, and it only makes sense that when a 5-star quarterback hits, a wide receiver follows. Now you can do the same logic with that 5-star quarterback fielding the last name Manning. All the lights are going to be on there. Love this addition for the Texas Longhorns, and that's a position right now they are absolutely loaded at, but you never argue with more talent. And though I harp on Texas's offensive line consistently, I'm going to do a little bit of a hot take here. The most important addition of Texas's day wasn't one of the many linemen they got. In fact, it was the linebacker from Hawaii, LeFou, because Texas desperately needed a win at the linebacker position. That was an area where they probably didn't get the numbers or the guys they wanted in the previous year. So to identify a guy who's sitting just outside the top 300, and I have news. If I had to bet, I think he finishes inside the top 300. Watch his tape. You'll figure out why very quickly. This is a great win for the Longhorns. They need help on that defense. If I'm not talking about that offensive line, my other question is the defense. Can't wait to see what they're able to identify there. Bringing in Gary Patterson was fantastic work by Sarkisian and company. Love that move. But the addition of an inside linebacker of this caliber is exactly what the Texas Longhorn class needed. And so there's a genuine discussion to be had. With Texas signing the historic offensive line class they got last season, is this the best addition of the day? I have to say it is. But that didn't stop Texas from going out and getting more additions, because we're talking about Connor Stroh, Trevor Gooseby, and Andre Kojo, all of which are offensive linemen, one of which flipped from TCU in Trevor Gooseby, and that is exactly what you love to see if you're Steve Sarkisian. It lets you know that you're able to flip from an institution that has some intrigue around it. Look, let's be very, very honest here. TCU is a proud institution. I'm not saying they're competing for national championships, but they're a proud institution that has been putting out great football for quite some time. In the state of Texas, you can catch a lot of people rooting for TCU because they're just a team that seems to be good. and they have some excitement about the new direction of their program. Some questions, no doubt, now that Gary Patterson's not there, but some intrigue and excitement. You're able to pull and flip kids that are committed somewhere where there is a level of intrigue. That, I think, is powerful, and I can't wait to see how this continues. Because I have news for those hoping that was a one-off and hoping that was the only run we'll see Texas make in recruiting. I don't think it is. I think that more skill positions will commit. I think this is something we have to watch closely, and because of that, I can't wait to hear from y'all. But I really am excited to hear who your biggest addition of the day is, because to me, it was the inside linebacker, Leona LeFou, out of Hawaii. I think that was a great win because of the skill set he brings to the table and because of the need at that position. And if you say it was one of the offensive linemen, I'm not going to argue. My only point would be Texas signed a historic offensive line class last year. The only one that I can think is even near the same level or on the same level is the one Alabama signed 2 years prior, which ironically enough was still a Kyle Flood offensive line class. So take that as you will, as Kyle Flood puts together back-to-back sensational offensive line classes. But now I can't wait to hear from y'all. That's it. See ya.